Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about the inner critic and how we can learn to shift that voice to one that's more nurturing. We're also going to start with a little movement work too, so we can put everything that I'm teaching you into practice. So who is the inner critic? Years ago I went to a therapy workshop where they talked about the itty bitty shitty committee. And no one had to explain to me what they meant by that. Whenever I made the smallest mistake or just didn't anticipate a problem for somebody else I didn't know in another state, I would feel like an utter failure. I imagined my committee as this infinite boardroom table with people standing up and yelling at me, pointing their fingers in blame and shame. But every once in a while, this cacophony of criticism would wane just enough that I could hear another voice, the still small voice that just told me the truth in a kind and gentle manner. You may have had some experiences like this. The inner critic is the internalized voice of a harsh caretaker when we were growing up. This is how we learn when we're young, by picking up patterns from people around us. We don't have much choice. But when we're older, we do have a choice, the choice that only awareness brings. It can be very helpful to identify who this voice is, and that will help you start to separate from it. Awareness is the ticket. My father gave my kids a stuffed bear that recorded for 5 seconds and played back for 5 seconds when they were kids. When they were really little. And I hated that bear. I hated that bear because I heard myself and I heard how I talked to my kids. And how I talked to my kids was how my parents had talked to me. And this, I realized, was also how I talked to myself. I woke up that day, and it took a while to break myself of this habit. I had to do things like intentionally change the voice to a kind, nurturing voice. Oh, that's okay, sweetie. I didn't really like that vase anyway. One time I wrote down all the mean things that my inner critic was saying to me, and then I read the list, and I was absolutely shocked. I would never talk to somebody else like that. But one of the best ways to relearn how to talk to ourselves is to get a new experience of it. Awareness through movement lessons can give us that exact experience. I'm going to give you some simple instructions and remind you constantly to take care of yourself and to just notice what you sense, but not to judge it. And in this way, you can start to learn that what you sense and feel is okay, and you don't have to meet anyone else's expectations. Since we're doing this at a body level, it goes straight to the unconscious. It is that harsh voice that is taking our attention away from our insides to focus on the outside. Now, we need to be able to focus on the outside world. We need to pay attention to what's for dinner and how to do our job and taking care of our children. But we also need to be able to dissolve into our own being and feel safe there. And that's what I really mean by feeling at home in your body. You can let your outside focus go for just a little while, just to rest within yourself, your authentic self. So I want to give you some practice in dissolving into your own being and leaving the inner critic outside. So pause this video and go find a chair with a solid bottom and no arms, and then come back. Hi, everybody. So let's begin with a little movement lesson. And usually I don't demonstrate these things. Usually I just want you to put on your own body and not on my body. But I want you to be able to see exactly how small these movements are. So these are not huge movements. I'm not trying to be better than I was yesterday. I'm trying to just feel myself and go within myself, shut off that critical voice, and just be within myself. So let's start with a really simple turning lesson. And just begin by feeling your sitting bones. So you should have a chair that has that's a little bit flat and a little bit, it doesn't have to be really hard. It can have a little bit of cushioning, but just not a whole lot. We want to be able to feel our skeleton. So begin by feeling your pelvis, your sitting bones in your chair. Get a sense of your feet flat on the floor. And notice what contact your feet are making with the floor. Is there more contact on the inner part of the feet or the outer part? The front part, the heel? Just notice. And notice your knees. Notice how they're angled out. And again, get a sense of your pelvis sitting in this chair. And that's our base of support. And then feel in your back, your spine, where it attaches to the sacrum in the back of your pelvis. And just follow your spine up, vertebra by vertebra. And you can just imagine where each vertebra is. You may not have a real sense of each one. And just follow it up through that lumbar curve. There are 5 vertebrae there. And then up into the thoracic. That's where your rib cage is. There's 12 vertebrae there, up between your shoulder blades. Until you get up to T1, and that's that knobby vertebra up at the top. It's at the base of your neck. And then just follow vertebra by vertebra. There's 7 cervical vertebrae in your neck. Follow that up into your head. And the top 2 vertebrae are inside your head. We have no access to those from the outside. And just get a sense of this support that you have in your spine. Feel your shoulders sitting on top of your torso. It's actually just sitting on top. It's only attached up here in the front. And feel your arms hanging off your shoulder. Feel your hands and your thighs. And now begin the movement very slowly and very small of turning a little bit to the right. So we're just going to turn our shoulders a little bit to the right, and we're going to start off really small and always staying within our level of comfort. Now, if you've got shoulder pain or back pain, any kind of pain that makes even this much of a movement painful for you, then make it smaller. And make it small so that it doesn't hurt, even if that means you're not moving. And I know that sounds incredible, but the nervous system doesn't know the difference. So if you just have this intention of moving a little bit to the right, just a tiny amount, your nervous system can still feel it. It still registers. So the idea is to let the movement start to grow organically in your own time. And also to start feeling how it's traveling. How's it showing up in other parts of your body? So notice how your whole rib cage turns to the right. Maybe you can feel your shoulder blades in your back. Let your head turn with the movement. And as we're turning the shoulders, notice that the spine is turning a little bit too. It's twisting. And since the pelvis is stationary here, The spine itself is twisting. How far down can you feel the twist? Can you feel it between your shoulder blades? Can you feel it into the lumbar? And I can feel this a little bit in my sacroiliac joint. That's where the sacrum and the pelvis come together. And notice how maybe your hands are sliding a little bit on your knees. And maybe you can even feel your pelvis turning a little bit to the right, because it's all connected. Now, let's add the breath to this. Many times when we're doing things that are new, we have to think we hold our breath. So let's try inhaling as we turn to the right and exhaling as we come back. And you may want to slow the movement down so that the breath is easy. And start to take an inventory and see if there's some places where you may be holding extra tension that's unnecessary, maybe in your jaw, maybe in your belly, in your chest, in your back. And don't judge, just notice. Start to take an inventory of where those places are where you may be holding extra tension. And then bring everything back to the middle and pause. And feel yourself in sitting now again. Feel your legs. Feel your pelvis. Feel that support in your back. And we have to take these little rests just to let the brain catch up. And now begin the movement of turning a little bit to the left. So again, we're going to start off small, turning a little bit to the left. And back to the middle. We do this many times. And let your head go with the movement. And one amazing thing about the body is that one side learns from the other side. So we don't usually have to spend as much time on the opposite side. And we're also asymmetrical. We tend to have one side that's more mobile and one side that's more stable. So you might notice that your left side might be easier or harder to turn than the other side. And now begin to notice that twisting in your spine. Notice how far down you can feel it. Can you feel that in your sacroiliac joint, in your pelvis? And if you take the turn far enough, your knee may start to come out a little bit. If you keep going a little bit farther. And again, if that's too painful, if something's bothering you, then don't go that far. Notice any places where you may be holding extra tension. Try inhaling as you go to the left and exhaling as you come back. And now try exhaling as you go to the left and inhaling as you come back. And just notice which one's easier. I kind of like inhaling to the left better, so that's what I'm going to do. And now when you're ready, take the movement alternating left and right. And if you can, let the movement start to grow organically in its own time. Maybe you'll notice that your hands are shifting a lot more on your legs. Maybe you can feel one knee coming forward and then the other knee. As our shoulders are moving far enough, it starts to affect the pelvis. So let's take this all back to the middle again. And take your shoulders to the right. And start to notice, where is that place where if you go far enough, you start to feel your knee come forward. So this movement is going to happen, but where does it happen? How far can you turn your shoulders when you engage your pelvis? Maybe you can even start to take it a little bit farther without engaging the pelvis. Keep your pelvis straight and see how far you can take your shoulders to the right. And then let everything move again. Let your pelvis be prompted by the shoulders to turn. We want all these parts of our body to be able to move separately, but we also want them to be able to move together so they help each other. So now let's go to the left. And keep your pelvis still. And see how far you can go to the left, turning your shoulders without your pelvis moving. Keep your pelvis still. And just do that a few times, remembering to breathe. You found a breath earlier that probably feels better to you, inhaling or exhaling as you go to the left. And now let everything go together. And alternate. Just start to feel the fluidity of the movement. You're not doing this in a way that someone is expecting you to do it. This should just look like what feels good to you. And now pause again. Let the brain catch up just for a moment. And let's bring our attention to our head and neck. So take your head a little bit left and right. It does help to close your eyes sometimes. If you ever start getting dizzy, open your eyes. When we close our eyes, it's easier to take our attention within. And just start to notice how far you can take your head left and right without any discomfort, without any pushing, pressing, forcing. Resist that urge to stretch in this movement, in this method. Resist the urge to stretch. We're trying to find that area, that zone where the movement is just so easy. And we let the muscles relax. When we don't stretch, the body can say, oh, you're not going to hurt me this time. I guess I can let go. Now start to notice that if you take your head far enough to the right, you might start feeling your shoulders wanting to move to. So just stay within that area where your shoulders don't move and just explore that range of movement. Now, when I first started in the method, I could never have gone this far. I would have been able to go this far. And so that's where you should stay if that is your level of comfort. And slow it down. Start to notice if maybe there are any little hiccups. Those are little holes in our movement vocabulary, and as soon as we find them and we can slow down, and the brain will learn how to move through that area again. And it adds to our movement vocabulary. So now, find that place where your shoulders want to start to move and let them start to move. But just let the head lead the movement. So take your head to that place where it wants to start to bring the shoulders, and then let the shoulders go. This is finding ways that our body can move separately and together. So now we have the shoulders and the head moving. The head is leading the movement. And when you get back to the middle, pause. And now we're going to layer one more thing in. So now, when you take your head to the right, let your shoulders go to the left. And when you take your head to the left, let your shoulders go to the right. And this is a new movement, so keep it small, keep it slow, and just get a sense in your spine of that twist that's going in opposite directions. And this is the kind of movement that's really good for bringing space and lengthening the spine. It's in our battle against gravity. And just get this sense of how easy it is to turn your head one way and your shoulders another way. And then let everything go back together. And start to notice if it's easier now. And feel your spine, and that twist. And if you're keeping your pelvis stationary, let it go now, so that everything can go together. Left and right. And let the head lead the movement. So the head comes back, and then the shoulders engage, and then the hip engages. And then bring it back to the right, and wait for the shoulders to engage, and wait for the pelvis to engage. And just get a sense of this delicious connection between your head, your shoulders, and your pelvis. And it's all through the spine. And then come back to the middle and rest. And feel yourself in sitting now. Check in with the places that you hold tension normally. See what they feel like now. Feel the contact of your feet with the floor. Does that feel different? Feel how your pelvis is sitting on the chair. Feel your hands in your lap. Feel your shoulders hanging off your torso and your arms. And notice your breath. And then in your own time, come up to standing. Feel your pelvis in standing. Feel your spine Do you feel taller? Do you feel shorter? Do you feel straighter? Just notice these things and walk around a little bit and see what that feels like. And I'll see you in the next lesson.